Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am joined today by my dear friend James Lott Jr., and I absolutely love you because you are someone I look up to. You have years of experience, but with the energy of like a 15-year-old kid.
Yeah, yeah, that
And
is
I
me.
love
That's really me. That's really me.
and I love it. And just to put things into slight context, I'm trying to have conversations with my friends and share them specifically because I have a lot of white friends, and so I want to really kind of talk with people and listen. And one of the things I want to acknowledge is anyone that does join me, including yourself. I truly appreciate because I was listening to my friend Ebony K. Williams on a different show, and this is really a white people problem at this point, and the white people need to do their homework, and so it is not your job to sit here and talk to me or my audience, but the fact that you're willing to, I truly appreciate. So, um,
Well,
as so,
I love you too. So that's unconditional. You know that.
yes. So I guess I want to start. This is not anything new for you, and I mean, how do you feel? Can you give me some history, give me some context? And I'm not talking about like, the history of what was, but your history.
I can do that, Phil Svitek. Yes. So this last week was really interesting for me. So those of you out there may not know this because I know I look great. Black don't crack. I'm 51 years old. I just turned 51 a few weeks ago. So I have 51 years on Earth as a black man. So I was born during the Civil Rights Movement. I was a school age during desegregation and busing. I came of age in the 80s where you could be fired for being black. And I fought in the 90s for a change in the corporate world while being black. So I have different stages of my life in this. I never thought back then that I'd still be for the same thing. I love dogs. Love it. It's like,
Yeah,
they
well,
hear my voice.
you
They
know
hear
what's
my
funny?
voice.
So, just as a quick side note, so I put up signs all over my windows, Black Lives Matter. So anytime they bark, it's for the
Yes, they're for the people. For the
yes.
people. That's right, dogs. I love animals. Okay, so for me, I just never thought that I'd be going through some of the same things I went through. Literally, I became an adult in 1987, like a biological adult at 18 years old. That's 30 something years ago. That's completely like the same problems that happened then are happening now. So this whole week, I got really shut down. I shut down. And I didn't know why I was shutting down because, again, like you just said, it's not new to me, clearly. But I talked to my therapist friend, Mimi McKinley, who I love. I do shows with. I do a show with her every Wednesday on IG. She helped point out I was triggered by trauma.
Mhm.
Black people go through trauma in this country all the time, and we may not even realize it sometimes. And trauma in the medical field, in the mental health world, can pop up at anything can trigger it. So I think the Central Park incident and this incident with George Floyd, both those incidents together, seeing those videos triggered me. I was them. I'm lucky to be alive. I was them in Central Park. I've been to that part of Central Park many times. I went to Brooklyn. I've been to New York. My family's in New York. I have had police pull me over and bend me over a car and things like that. I mean, I've been that person. So I think it really got me depressed because it triggered the past for me, saying that this is something that can happen to any of us who are black. And it has happened to me. And I'm actually writing a book on it right now, my experience with the police. I was writing it anyway, but now like really writing it to get it out there. And it really made me cry. Like I literally cried. And I cried for them, and I cried for myself. I cried for my grandsons. I cried for my nephews. It really did affect me, but it was because of triggers of my own life. And that's kind of where I was last week. I mean, for a couple of days, I just completely just kind of shut down.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing better, but we'll talk about that in a second. But I just completely was feeling the weight of all black men. I was just, all of a sudden it was, I mean, even the way I was walking, I felt like I was walking forward. I was feeling hunched over. I'm a person, as you know, I walk very tall and proud. I mean, that's how I am. And it really caught me off guard. I was thinking, this happens all the time. So why am I like being, and so to answer your question, that's how I felt for at least a week last week.
Well, it's interesting. I know, like, from my circle of like self-help and things like that, a lot of people talk about generational trauma. And what I'm so like disgusted by is that, like, for a lot of the white people that I talk to, they're like, "Oh, I have generational trauma." And I'm like, "Do you not see then? Can you not apply that same thinking and just shift it to the black community? Because what the fuck do you think they have?" Can you see me? Something happened on my end.
I see you. I see you. I heard you. I heard you say it. I heard it.
All right. Something happened on my end, so I didn't see you. But yeah, so like I am. Hey, there's people
Protesting. That's right. Protest. Speak
protesting
out.
everywhere. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I'm just absolutely like disgusted by that notion. And furthermore, like, it is interesting to, I'd be curious to know, one of my therapist friends, she's talking with her therapist friends on, like, whatever the national sort of group is, or at least one of them, of like, if we're going to help people mentally, we need to help them with the racism as well. And that's not, that's not part of the curriculum at all.
It isn't. And and it's simple things. So as of this recording, I just recorded a podcast with two young black men that I do music with. And I brought them on. We had a discussion. We black men having a discussion about race, and we did, very honest. But at one point, my co-collaborator, James Woods, said to me and my other cohort, Mike Brown, he said, "You both are beautiful. You are a beautiful black man." We don't say that enough about black men, that they're beautiful. And when he said it, I started crying. You know I'm a crier. I'm a crier anyway. I cry all the time. But I started crying, and I said to him, and he was like, I said to him, I said, "Thank you for saying it." I said, I want to tell you something. I was never told I was beautiful until I was an adult. I was never told I was good looking or beautiful or anything as a black person until I was an adult. That no one ever said it to me.
Who was the first person to tell it to you?
That's a good question. I think it was a mentor of mine. His name was Joe. I can't remember his last name to save my life because I'm old and I can't remember back then. But his name was Joe. And I actually wrote a story in my journal I read about recently. He was a friend of my mom's who used to come around, and he kind of mentored me and kind of taught me the ways of the world. And he said I was beautiful. The first person said I was beautiful. And the second person, which even more importantly said I was beautiful, was a guy named Tim Dolan, who passed away from AIDS back in '91. But back in the day, he was the only gay black man that I knew in Sacramento. There was not very many of us running around there. That took me under his wing and taught me how it is to be a black gay man in Sacramento. Basically, he taught me how to walk through it, and he told me I was beautiful. And he said, don't let society tell you, don't let the publications tell you that you're not, that you are beautiful. And I remember back then, I didn't cry when I heard them. I was just kind of like shocked, like, really? Is it me? And then I felt it in their actions towards me. So when my friend James said it today, it just brought tears to my eyes. I remember I was never taught that.
And
never taught.
And I'm curious to go down this line. Like, how many times have you been told it since then, apart from just very recent, just right now?
Well, I mean, people think I'm good looking. I hear that all the time. But in a seriousness of that I've heard it many times since then in various ways. You're a beautiful black man, strong by your handsome black man. But again, I think for some reason that James said it today, while we're going through all this stuff, it just, again, it's a trigger of trauma, bring me back to growing up for the first 18, 19 years of my life, not ever being told that. I mean, yeah, I grew up where black is beautiful. And I remember all that back in the 70s, but I wasn't told that specifically. I was being told everything else. Yeah. You're black, so this is going to happen. You're black, so this is going to happen. You're black, don't do this. You're black, watch what hairstyle you have. What are you doing with your hair? What are you doing with this? I mean, it's like I was told all the other stuff that was being piled onto me. Then in magazines, not seeing black men in magazines back then. And, it's like just things like that. It was just for some reason, this time period, him saying it now just reminded me of that pre-adult time period where this wasn't celebrated at all.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about you mentioned the corporate world, the corporate fight. Because I think, this comes on all levels. And, it was just so interesting to watch the NFL put out a statement.
Yes.
Bombarded. And rightfully so. I mean, like, and I think that's the thing, like, acknowledge, if anything, acknowledge your past mistake. I'm not saying it's going to right the ship,
Oh, right.
and so, going back to, what was it? You mentioned the 80s.
80s and 90s.
What was that like? What was the corporate fight? And yeah, just very curious from your perspective.
Yeah, no, it was way different than it is today. I mean, it was very much, in the 80s, greed is good, power is good. I remember all that. It was about making money. Everybody wanted to make some money. It was a big deal. But if you were brown, it wasn't an option. Like, you weren't taught that was an option. I mean, I was told, by my father was working in the Senate by then. He was in Sacramento working for the Senator Watson. So he was working in politics. My mother was in schools and doing stuff with teaching. So I didn't have that in my life immediately. But I went to college, got out, and I decided to hit certain worlds. And when I started getting into it, I started to level, entry level, mailroom stuff, whatever. And I quickly move up, because every job I ever had, I always move up, because I'm a hard worker. And they let me move up. But then I learned about the ceilings. I learned about how I was the only black blank in the company. I was the only person of color in the company. I was the good Negro, so I was okay. We don't think of you as Black, James. That kind of stuff. And I'll give you a great example of how corporate can work for you and not work for you in the early 1990s. I worked for a company called Headlines. They have 1,000 stores everywhere in San Francisco and Bay Area. I mean, I'm in the Bay Area, where you think it's like Mr. Liberal, everything's great there. Me and this white guy, his name is Peter, I won't say his last name. We're still friends to this day, actually. We both got there at the same time, around the same age. We actually kind of didn't look similar, but we were similar in like weight and size and everything. Moved up about the same. Like, literally, it's almost like neck and neck. There's no real, like, we used to control, you did good on the floor. You did good on, we got to the supervisory role. We both were supervisors. Now it becomes, we need a store manager. Okay, we both put our hats in the ring. And I'm blindly thinking, well, a lot of folks were saying, well, James, you have a personality to kind of really bring people together. So we thinking you probably would get the job, because you just have that slight edge. And Peter even admitted that himself. And I was much more friendlier. I was much more democratic, whatever words you want to use, when it came to problem solving. You had a problem, Senator James Lott Jr., he'll take care of it, everybody will be happy, and blah, blah. So I thought I was going to get a job. I just thought I was going to get it. I mean, I just thought, well, because of that notion, but I knew there was a possibility he could get it. Well, they told me why I didn't get that job. They pulled me in the office and said, this is before they had the word urban, that came much later. They said to me, you are amazing, James Lott Jr. We love the work you've done here for the last 5 years. You are great. We're going to give you the money, the raise, and we'll give you the parking spot. And even though at that time I got rid of my car and I was in San Francisco riding BART, but we'll give you the parking spot. We'll give you the hours. We just can't give you the title. I was like, so why not? Well, Peter's gonna have. So you and Peter will be equal, but he'll be store manager. You'll be kind of like. I said, so am I assistant store manager? Well, no, but you'll have the rights and privileges of kind of like store management. We'll come to you for advice and things, and help run the store. I go, so then why am I store manager? Well, the board thinks that if we hire you as store manager, it will give a different image for the company. And I'm like, what image is that? Well, that it's a black store. They said it to me. I sat there. Again, this is the early 90s. I'm not that surprised. They're just so open about their racism back then. They didn't care back then. Because you could get fired for being black at jobs with no recourse. I said, oh, so me being store manager will turn into I think it's a ghetto store. Like, well, we don't mean it like that, but just that we have a certain image that we have. All stores are very uniform. I said, so what you're telling me is you have no black people in any positions that run the store. And at the time I sat there fuming, but knowing I had very few options. I mean, back then I had very few options. And San Francisco was as expensive it was now. It was expensive. But I took a stand, because that's just who I am. And I said, if you can't give me the title, I quit. Now, I know not all black people could do that. Some folks had things that were going on. I was very fortunate. At that time, my daughter was really young, and her mom had a job. We were okay. Like, there were things I could do it. And I got a job right away after that, but I left.
Was there any part of you that was like, shit, maybe I should consult with her before I make this stance?
No, because I knew her and I knew she would agree with me.
Okay.
I knew, and then when I told her, she was like, "Good for you." Like she was like, "So like good for you, guys," because we were just like, because we're both kind of activists in some form back then. So I knew it'd be okay with her if I did it. If I did, it'd be fine. And I got a job right away. I got a job right away.
Mhm.
But it was like, but that moment I realized later, not all Black folks back then could do that. I know it's a privilege that I could do that, but I had to send them a message. I didn't care if I was going to eat potatoes for the next 5 weeks. I had to make a send a message that this is not okay. And if you're not going to give me a chance to affect change happen, I got to give you a message. Now I'll give you a little follow up. 5 years later, they came back to me under new management, and I was store manager of their Castro location.
Look at that.
I actually went back and finished out. So they closed down the stores. The stores closed down like a year later. But I actually went back 5 years later, and I was the store manager of the Castro Street store of headlines.
Um,
So, but it's just very interesting that back then the racism was very open. It was very just like the corporate world was just like, this is how it is. Women, gays, blacks, Latin, it didn't matter. They were very open that it was an old boys club, that the white folks are running everything. It was very open. There was no like hiding it or being subtle or whatever. They were just like, this is how it is. If you don't like it, bye. They didn't care. They're like, bye, see you later. We'll find somebody else just like you out there and fill your spot.
yeah. Well, not to like switch topics too much, and because I think that's very powerful, and I'd love to follow up on that. But in today's day and age, when there are studies that literally prove the health of your company financially will be better the more diverse you are. And when you look at studies like Harvard did a study where they made a very amazing resume. And this is more of a gender thing, but they put, just, I don't know, they put Greg on one and Georgina on the other, right? People said that Greg's resume, he was a stand-up guy, he showed leadership and so forth, whereas for Georgie, and different names, I'm just making this completely up as far as the names, but they revealed that they were like, she's entitled, who does she think she is? And so this is a gender thing. So what sort of reform in today's day and age should happen? Like, how do we like create like a blind application process where race, gender does not fall into it? Like, is that part of the solution? Are there others? Like, what's your perspective on that?
I think that we need to make it an even playing field. And we can I feel like at this point we need to start from the top and not have it where it's like we take every stereotype in consideration and that's how we judge and base people on. I mean, we all have biases, I can get that, but I feel like we need to make it an even playing field. So whether it's you're black or white or Latino or Asian, whether you're female, male, or whatever gender you go by, we need to kind of stop doing that and really go by merits of your work and your talent. I feel like we need to get back to that because, as you know, I work very hard in everything that I do, and I feel like that's what should tell the tale of when I should move up in a company. Because in the corporate world, it's all about milestones and markers. That's what you kind of do until you retire. Then you like retire and go off to the Bahamas. I mean, it's like, but that's the whole thing. So when it comes to that, I think we need to find a system where it's like, let's put everybody on a playing field. So when a woman is strong, she's not a bitch. When a black guy gets loud, he's not an angry black man. I mean, there's those stereotypes that are just ingrained in there that women are always combating and black men are always combating that too. I don't be the angry black man. I want to say something, but I would say, you're getting a little too heated, James. You're getting too heated, or, James, calm down. I've had that in meetings before. I'm like, I'm not going off. I have a deep voice and I'm just trying to get my opinion out there. If we can make it an even playing field where it's talent versus talent, work versus work, that's to me, and then we'll get more diversity. My friend Mike Robbins, I just interviewed him on my show not too long ago, puts out a series of books about, he's white, but he's in Oakland. He has a series of books about how putting the personal back in business.
What's the series called for anybody that wants to check it out?
Oh my God, I'll have to email it to you. I forgot. I'm thinking out right now because I'm thinking out this black stuff right now. But his name is Mike Robbins. Mike Robbins is great. He's on all social media platforms. But he's all about putting the business back in business and his person back in business. And his latest book has a whole thing on race, and how diversity of race is great for a company, for the emotions of the company, for the complexities of the company, for everything for the company. That it's just that you need different people in a group. to make ideas happen. You need different perspectives. And that's always been my thing. And every job I've ever had, I always got into management. It was surprising, right? I always got into management. So I always tried to implement systems. And some of those jobs are still there. I heard they're still implemented. That would included more diversity in thought, language, and color.
To that effect, so you're, one of the many hats you wear, apart from a Brooklyn hat, is
Yes.
is a super organizer, right? You help people organize their lives, which in large part is also a mental thing. But
Oh yeah, no, it
um,
is.
but just talking about the field in general, what's the landscape like there, and in what sort of message would you have at this point, kind of flipping it, because we don't need more white people, more white people does not like bring up diversity, but like, what would you say to someone that like is, to encourage them to be in the field of super organizing?
It's funny because it's my 5-year anniversary of my show, the Super Organizer Show with James Lott Jr. And I just had, and of this day of this recording, I just recorded that episode with 3 of the former presidents of our big association, NAPO, the National Association of Productivity and Organizers. It's the biggest organization in the world. There's others, but it's the biggest one. And I'm a member of it. I've been a member for 6 years. I just made the Golden Circle movement of that. And I interviewed the three ladies that run it. See, the organizing world is mostly women. It's 95% women and 5% men. And then with the women, it's 90% white women and 10% other.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked with some other of the Black female organizers. I've talked with them. And I found one Black man who's an organizer in Atlanta. Only one. He's Black. We haven't talked yet, but I met him. His name is Steven, so I can't wait to talk to him on the show. The show is female heavy, and it's very Caucasian heavy. So we had this talk on my show about the future, and I really do believe, and what I'm doing in my part with my show and I'm kind of a big deal in that industry at this point. I've been doing it for 11 years, and I've always tried to push diversity and try to push people of color, trying to attract people of color. This job is not color specific. That's the great thing about organizing. I have a series called the Super Organizer and Man in the Industry series. And I have to do an episode on that where I'm like, so it's not based on gender. It's not based on color. Anyone can learn how to be an organizer and learn how to be organized. That it's colorblind. It's gender blind. It's like, we need more people to stop thinking of this as a white person's field. Just because you don't know about it and they may not know it's a business, it is. And that's been my job, is to show people out there of all colors and stuff that this is a great business. We're affecting change in a lot of people's lives. It's a mental and physical thing. Me showing up to your house to organize your closet is only just a small part of it. It's a small part of it. And for great mental health, a lot of times how you keep house, how you keep your office is really a big deal. It shows how you are. And I think people of color need to understand that it's not just a white people's field. You can come into this field and really do some amazing things if that's what you are into. If you're really into, tidying and organizing and system building and system creating, it's not color specific. And so I try to fight that all the time, that I'm Black, but it's not, it doesn't matter. You can be anything you want and be an organizer. It's a great field. I love that industry so much. I can't even tell you.
So that's a very interesting perspective because, like the field itself is colorblind, but how do you react to when people say, "Oh, I am colorblind"? You know what I mean? Because there's a lot like that. Because there is a distinction, and I'm very thankful that I have great like mentors and people that I can listen to, and like they've explained the difference to me. But I'm curious because you just said the field is colorblind. So how do you have a field that's colorblind, but not be colorblind yourself? And I don't mean you specifically. I mean like white people.
Yeah. I hate the term colorblind.
Okay.
I feel like that you don't have to be colorblind. See my color, as long as it's not anything bad. When I was younger and I was told, James, I don't think of you as Black, I thought it was a compliment. And I thought, oh, they really see me, James Lott Jr. Oh my goodness. And then I realized, oh, they think Black is bad, and so I'm the good Black person. That's when I started realizing, when I started seeing their other exchanges and how they treat other Black people. I was the golden child, golden brown child. It was very much like, oh, I'm over here. I'm like Oprah Winfrey. We're the good Negroes. We're over here. Then I started going, wait a minute. I don't mind if you see me as Black, only if you see thinking Black is bad. So I hate the term colorblind. I'm like, don't be colorblind. See who I am. See that I'm brown or you're light or whatever. As long as it's not negative. I have no problem being called a Black host or a host who is Black, as long as you don't pigeonhole me in just that and a stereotype in it. I'm a Black host. I'm a Black. I'm a host. I'm also a Black host. I'm a Puerto Rican host. I'm all kind of hosts. I'm everything. I have no problem how you want to describe me, but don't hold me into whatever stereotype you have for that. So I hate the word colorblind, and I think people need to eliminate that from the vocabulary, because I think it's just ridiculous. I mean, we all look different. You have short hair. I got an afro under here. I'm not showing anybody right now. I have a larger nose. Some people have smaller nose. Like we look what we look like, folks. Who gives a F? I don't even cuss on here or not. I guess you cussed earlier. Who gives a fuck?
Who gives a fuck?
It's like we all look different. So it's like let's celebrate that. Who cares? It's like that's the point. So look at me and say that I'm colorblind. And in business, you see me as a Black man, good, that's fine. As long as you don't see me as a Black man in spite of or also as. I mean, no, screw all that. Just see, if you see me as Black, that's fine, but see me as a good worker or a good asset to the company or a good collaborator. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing. It's like, celebrate my Black. Maybe some of my Blackness actually can help some. It's like maybe some of your Eastern Europeanness can help something. Like it's kind of like, why are we so afraid to see the differences? Just to celebrate the differences. Let's not make a big deal about the differences. Just to celebrate them. So that's kind of how I feel about that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because there was a painfully wonderful quote that I heard, that we are in a time where we are infinitely creative at finding ways to divide ourselves.
Yes. I like that.
I like it too, but when you really stop and think about why you like it, you're like, that's really fucked up.
It is. But it's a great description. Great description.
So how do we see the differences but not act on them? So I think, like that, I feel like that's the key component of it. And it's like, because I do feel like there's so much, the idea that it's just so interesting. I have these quote unquote discussions with people, and you say one thing that's wrong, that is not of their opinion. They're like, well, you're not a free thinker and you're following the mainstream media. And it's like, whoa. First off, I gave my own opinion that is separate of the mainstream media, but because I don't think like you, all of a sudden I am not a free thinker. And it seems to me like the debate aspect of it has just gone out the window.
Yes, that's our cancel culture. That's our culture of, I am right. Here is my opinion. Here's my verbal diarrhea. And if you don't agree with it, screw you. I'm totally opposite of that. And that's why I had to get off of social media for a while, because I just think that I have Black folks who get on my nerves, to be quite honest. So they get on my nerves just as bad, they get just as bad and everything else. But I refuse to fight with Black folks online, because I'm like, let them have their anger. Let them do their, I mean, I know everything's heightened right now. But I have folks who literally, if you don't think a certain way like they do exactly, you're wrong. That's never been me at all. I've been always I'm a free thinker, folks. You don't know who I am. I'm a free thinker. I do things whatever the way I want to. I feel like people need to understand that people change and grow. I'm not the same person I was at 18 or 25 or even 45. Not even from last year, I'm not the same person. Hopefully, right? If we're fortunate, we grow and change, and we're getting better and better. With that is education. I'll go back to my organizing. Everything starts with a habit. You have to start, everything begins and ends with a habit. Everything you do, it's a habit form thing. So for me, if you're open to kind of looking at your own biases, prejudices, racism, whatever, it's going to take time to unlearn them. It's going to take time to put them in the past and adopt new ways of thinking. It takes time. You will not always say the right thing as you're going through this. We need more compassion for people who are really trying, like who are seriously trying. I think we need to be a little more lenient. I get the anger and rage and how you're just tired of folks saying certain things. I totally get that. But let's educate them. Let's help them create good habits to be born out of this. That where they stop saying, that's so gay, or, that's so black. Some people just, they grow up saying that, and sometimes don't even know it's doing anything bad. You have to really just trust they may not know that. Well, if they're open to changing and not saying that anymore, then let's help them along and give them the compassion to actually get there. Change happens. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. And it takes time, steps in time, but it's all back to habit forming. It goes all back to that organizational thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the ways you do that.
How do you encourage people to do that? Because, there's a show that I produce and we were talking, and, the host is a white woman and her audience is mostly white yoga wearing women.
Yeah, they're wearing women's.
Yeah. And she's someone like, I really praise her. And she was like, she really felt uncomfortable doing the episode that she did, but I was like, I think that's the point. And the reason I bring that up is because I think it's one thing to put in work, but I think this is Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, Black Lives Matter.
But I think it's another entirely, like, there's a difference between going to the gym and feeling that sort of pain versus like there's like a huge level of discomfort. And I think, I've seen firsthand, like, you just said like, the pejoratives of like, you're gay, you're black. And yet a big pejorative seemingly is the word racist. And it's like, white people just don't want to wear that badge. They are not even willing to admit that they have racist tendencies. And I don't know. I don't know. I really hope for better. I have started saying that I am a racist, not as a badge of honor, but to admit, like, I have, like,
Here's something I'm going to say to you, Seville. I think you should say, instead of I'm a racist, I have privilege. I acknowledge my privilege. I think that's the words we need to use nowadays. That people who have, like, I have male privilege. I have male privilege. I mean, I'm not a white man, but for some women, I have way privilege over them. And I admit it. I completely admit it. I have height privilege. I'm tall. I can do certain things that short people can't do it. So I tell people all the time, once we acknowledge our privileges, because that's a word too that's very divisive, privilege. People hear the word privilege, they think money.
Not to cut you off, but because one of the things, like, people say, oh, well, I've worked hard for everything that I've gotten and this and that. So can just level with everybody. What is privilege defined as?
Privilege is defined that you can do something and get away with something that others can't. That's, to me, it's the simplest way of privilege. That you, by the way you look or your attributes, can get away with certain things that others can't. That's why I met the male privilege thing up. There are things that men can get away with that women can't. There are things that black folks can get away with that maybe Latinos can't. And then white folks can get away with all kinds of stuff that everybody else can't. That's the baseline of privilege, is that the way you look pretty people have privilege over people who are not so pretty. Like, it's the way you look. It's your coloring, it's your skin, it's your nose, it's your eye color. All that stuff gives you an advantage in life over someone else who doesn't have that. That's my definition of baseline of privilege.
Have you seen the video? There's a wonderful video. It's a school teacher, and he has like a race, right? And he says, whoever wins gets $100 bill. Now, before we do this, he said, I'm going to call out a couple of things. And if it applies to you, take 2 steps forward. And the point of this exercise was the idea that, basically all of a sudden, all the white people ended up at the front and all the black people ended up at the back. And it's like, see, nothing that I have said is actually something that you have achieved in your life. This was something outside of you. And I thought that was a very powerful way to illustrate it.
But that's the whole point. Is that it's privilege. And I invite all of my white friends to say they admit they have white privilege. That, to me, is the first start. I've always said that since on other shows, and I'll say it again and again, and it's controversial to some people, and I don't care. True change will not happen until the people who have the privilege admit they have privilege. So full gay rights are not going to happen until straight people realize they have privilege and bias.
Why is that controversial?
Folks get mad. I mean, it's like, well, you can't get everybody to lie. I'm not talking every single person in the whole goddamn world. I'm just saying that most folks, they don't like that I say that. I know I get blowback from sometimes. Like, well, you just, that change can still happen. You don't have to wait for white folks to do it and that kind of stuff. Like, well, I'm not waiting for them to do it, but at some level, it really won't go anywhere until they admit they have privilege. The discussions will not happen. But black folks,
yeah. I mean, yeah. To me, it's like if it's a systemic issue,
right?
It's because the white people put it there. So
that's my whole thing. I'm coming from, like you said earlier, a generational thing. I'm coming from how this, being brought over here. First of all, and it was we didn't find feminist nation. We helped build it, but we didn't found it. They put a system in place. There were no black folks in the writing the Constitution. They did that. So there are things that are put in place that we have to dismantle, but we can't fully dismantle them until those who put it in place admit it. And I'm sorry, folks, and you guys who are now, I was around in the 1600s, and my family didn't own slaves. Always hear those kind of things all the time. And I say, but that's not the point. The point is, you still look like those who did, and you still have the privilege of those who did. It doesn't matter if you did it yourself. It's like, I'm not a gangbanger either, but I feel bad for black and black crimes. I don't. Those two things are mutually exclusive. So it doesn't matter if your family were slave owners. I'm like, who cares? But the point is that you are a white person, and no, you're not rich. No one's saying you didn't work hard. That's not what we're saying. And we're not asking for better rights or more rights. We're asking to be equal. That's all. That's all we're asking for. I'm tired of hearing this narrative too of like, they just want so much, and they just want all. I'm like, no, not really. We just want the same stuff you got.
Yeah, it's interesting. And how do you handle that sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, backlash? Like, do you just like quiet them, block them, like what?
I don't have the privilege to lay down. Yeah. I don't have the privilege to go numb. I just don't. Being a black person in America, I can't. I treat it the same way I treat my everyday life when I leave the house. And nowadays, not even living in your house anymore. But when I leave the house, I'm on alert. I'm hyper aware of my blackness wherever I go. And I'm hyper aware of any reactions that I get. So when I get reactions like this, I get backlash, I kind of know I'm going to get it. So I don't get as upset as when I was younger. I've mellowed out a lot as I've gotten older. Trust and believe. We can't fight the world. So I've learned it just reinforces what I know already. So I'm not the angry black man every 5 seconds. But a few hit me certain ways, and I usually will try to educate them and engage them, only for a little bit. After a while, I do just kind of, if I see it's not going anywhere. And I've had I want to make this clear. I've had great debates with people that have ended in something great. I will say that with white folks. I have had some great discussions, personally, professionally, online, in person, that were great discussions. Great discussions where we both actually want to learn something. Because I'm learning something too. And so I'm kind of, it's a give and take thing. It's not just, okay, you got to learn from me. I'm the educator and that's it. No, I'm learning from white people too. I'm learning what they're going to do. I have white family members. My family, I'm part white. It just happens. I grew up in a multicultural household and family where I had a grandparent, each of different races, basically. And so I learned from you also. And I think, and to me, it's about trying to have that dialogue. But if you see it's not going, some folks argue just to argue. Some folks bait you just to bait you. And you have to find, because I'm in media and I'm on television, I kind of know how that, I know what trolls are. I know how that works. So I'm a little more well-equipped to pick and choose my battles.
Yeah. It's very interesting to me, the aspect of education, because I was talking with Drew Jones before this, and she mentioned like, we as Black people learn your history. And she was telling me like, she can tell, the Holocaust, basically everyone else's culture.
The revolution, all these things, we learn all that stuff. Yes. Civil War.
Yeah. But Black history is only, is not taught. And it's very cursory as far as Martin Luther King. And even that it's a very, I don't know, from an educational standpoint, like what sort of education would you want to see in terms of, I don't know, just even literature read, right? And also, I'm very curious. This kind of popped into my head. I'm very curious to know if what you think of this, because we always talk about like, I will never know your perspective. Do you think through virtual reality, like, the whole VR headsets, do you think that could be a start to maybe like have people realize and experience it?
That's a good question. But see, then my question would be to you is, they know it's a VR experience, it's not for real. I wonder if that's not any different than showing them a film of something that happens. I know VR is more, it's more interactive, you feel like you're there, but I wonder if that, would that be actually, would that work? I wonder.
I don't
If
know.
you go,
I'm not saying it's the only
right,
solution.
no, I know. That's an interesting thing. I'm just thinking, I wonder if that would, because you're fully, when you're in VR, you're fully immersed. I know that part, but I'm just like wondering if it was almost like that Scared Straight series that came out years ago. I mean, I was kind of laughing at some of it because it was very over the top, but I always wondered, they're on television. They know they're being filmed, so you kind of know you can't really do anything that bad to them, I guess. I wonder how effective that show was. I get what it was trying to do, but I wonder if they didn't have any cameras and this was a program, and they knew it wasn't fake, and they could do whatever. I wonder if that'd been more effective. I just wonder. I mean, it's one of those things when it's because I can't. I mean, my virtual reality is just every day. I mean, I just can't escape it. I mean, there's no, black folks can't escape this at all. There's
When
no.
when you say what they did, are you talking about
Well, the
the
cops and the other inmates that they would have in that series, they would have like scare them and stuff.
yeah.
And maybe some of the kids, I mean, I don't know the statistics. Maybe some of the kids came out okay. I don't know. But I always just felt like, well, it's for the cameras also. So they can only do so much. I mean, legally, I mean, they can't really touch. I mean, I think, what if we actually lock these little motherfuckers up in jail with them, have them spend the night with a criminal overnight? You can't really do that. But what if they did? Well, I wonder if that would really scare you straight. That would scare me straight. That would scare the fuck out of me. I mean, I would never go to jail and do anything bad. But you know what I mean? But there was cameras there. So I'm just like, well, what is that? I mean, what can they really do? So I just wonder. I kind of like your whole thing of like, walk a mile in my shoes and you see what's going on. But I was curious how that would. I mean, I just wonder how that would work. If that really would work or not.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I asked about the Scared Straight thing specifically because I do know someone who worked on the show and.
Oh, you know, I'm like,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to
No, nothing. Listen, I don't think she'd take it that way, but on the plus side, I think she has mentioned to me that it does, like, it has caused some good stuff.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
But yeah, it is that question mark, and I don't think she'd like be offended in any sense of like, well, would there be a bigger reform if the cameras weren't there? So I don't think she'd be like offended.
Okay. I'll get some tweets later from her going, yeah, I saw your show with Phil, and you were talking to me. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, I am curious about that because kind of like, because I do some volunteer work with programs that are not on camera. Folks, I work with young Latino groups and young men's groups and things. I've done that off camera, and of course, Homeboy Industries I've done stuff with them, and it's not on camera. And so the stuff is, I mean, I know it's real. So I've seen real change come out of those, be born out of those organizations. So I'm just curious, when there's no cameras around, it seems like that is much more a possibility because you can do more things you probably couldn't do on camera. You can say certain things that you can't say on camera. So I just wonder just how that would work. But I knew what the show was trying to do, and and anything you do to help, if a person's watching it on TV and gets scared, then great. Yeah. And if a young black kid sees it and goes, "Ooh, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna talk back to my teacher or my mother," then yes, they've won.
Yeah, and I guess in that sense, like and again, I'm not saying like the VR thing and walk a mile in my shoes is the only way, but I mean, I just look back on it and the lack of literature. Like I don't, we talked about Toni Morrison, but we didn't read Toni Morrison.
I went to a black high school and didn't learn black history. I went to a black high school. Really take that for a second. Like really sit with that for a minute, folks. I was in the Hoodie Hood in New Inglewood, and we did not learn black history. And we learned from the regular old white books they gave us. Everybody all about white, and then the Indians did this, and they welcomed the white folks. It was completely sanitized. But I also want to make a note that I know we're trying to also compete with white schools and better schools for funding. I know that was going on, and for us to go to certain colleges. I want to go to a good college, so that again, systemic state tests. They don't test on black history. They test on American white history. So yeah, you had to learn certain things so you can actually do your SATs and other things. And so I get that was going on too. So that's a whole other issue, of course, on the show. But I'm just thinking for a second. I went to a all black high school mostly. There was some Latino and other, but mostly black high school in a black neighborhood. And I didn't learn black history. I learned it in college and later. That's where I learned black history. And some family stuff. My family would tell you a few things here and there. But even they were like back, because this is back in the, I went to school with dinosaurs around. So when I was back in school, it was like, don't be so black. I was being told to be a certain way so I could get that. They taught me you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. That's what I was taught my whole life. So I had to like, don't speak Spanish so much, James, or kind of hide that for a little bit. Only bring it out when you need a job. So you make 15% more than other people. So I can't be Puerto Rican unless I get it for a job. But I'm black, but only be just a smidge black. And here's something that you just made me think of, Phil. I'm gonna share this with people out there. My father, James Lott Sr., very prominent figure here in Los Angeles, and he's very, very light-skinned. And there were things that he went through that I judged him completely for, passing, and that is a whole other story too, to get ahead back in the 70s and 80s, because you kind of had to use what you had. Now that I look back, I wouldn't necessarily do what he did, but I understand, because he's very successful. I get why he had to do certain things. He felt he had to do certain things to get ahead because, again, black folks did not have the privilege of just getting ahead on their own merits. That was an issue. So now I look back as an adult and go, okay, I get why he made certain choices. I totally get it now. As a black man, he's still a black man. I mean, just light-skinned black man. But I get why he made certain choices. And I'm like, okay, now I understand it a little more now. I get older.
As a host, do you make a certain shift? Because I know, like, our friend Daryl Kristen, he often, they're like, okay, show your personality. He's like, he said to me, like, which personality do you want? Do you want, like, the representation of black, or do you want me to show my personality? And luckily, there's plenty of things that he's hosted where, like, no, I want you to be you and the true Daryl, not like the black man persona. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what your experience hosting wise is with that.
Good question. I don't have any experience. I don't have anything because I've always been me. I think because I came to the business fully formed as James Lott Jr., whatever that is. I just came on, and that's been the controversy for a lot of people. I just come on, I cry on camera, I laugh on camera, I got a big, loud, deep voice. I talk plainly on camera. I can be professional. I know how to talk certain ways. I know the code switching, and I do all that. But I've always brought fully who I am, and you know this. I worked with you. You know this. I've always fully brought myself or versions of myself. My thing is more about entertaining. I know that I'm here to entertain. That's the number one thing of being a host. Is I'm here to, like, hope you don't change the channel or change, the video or change, or leave the YouTube channel. I want you to stay with me, whoever I'm talking to. So for the most part, I'm everything. I'm not just black, white, Puerto Rican. I'm just James. I run my life that way, personally and professionally. So I've never been afraid to bring that into anything that I do. And when it comes to hosting, I'm fully James Lott Jr., as you know. And on Black Hollywood Live, when I was on that show, I would make jokes and say, you can get a little blacker on here. And that was always a joke I would say it to my guests. Like, can we say, you say what you want, it's Black Hollywood Live, we're black, But I never, if you look across all of my shows, whether it was Dish and Days or When Calls the Heart or an interview with Ed Asner or whatever, I was always James Lott Jr. across the board. And I know there were times where it maybe came across very black or very gay or very old or very whatever. I mean, I just always felt that I learned and this is not an ego thing, but I just learned very early on that I have a magic that some other folks have as too. People seem to like me. They seem to want to listen to me. They seem to want to be around me. So I said, I got to harness that when I do hosting. I got to find a way to harness that. That people want to see and hear what I have to say. So as long as I'm upbeat and interested and prepared, which I am in all my interviews and all my shows, I think that's the win. I think after a while they kind of stop seeing my color on some level, and it's James Lott Jr. I mean, I think they see that. But I realized I have a magic in there that I've learned to tap into and to say, the more authentic I can be, the more enjoyable you'll be to watch me. And I get that all the time. Well, James, you seem interested in your interviews. You seem interested in what you're talking about. Well, I am.
Yeah.
I really, and you know this, what you see is what you get. I am this way with everybody, every time, 24/7. I talk this way in personal life and real life. And I've had to tell people who I know I'm not their cup of tea. I know there's folks who just, they've criticized the way my style and everything. I say that's okay. There's people who are not my style. You know, I like Howard Stern. I like Larry King. I like Barbara Walters. But there's also people I don't care for so much in their style. That's just fine. We react to each other how we come to it. So it's just kind of like, well, maybe I had 2 people. I've had 4 people in my entire career turn me down for interviews. They didn't like my style. That's a great batting average, though, because everybody else I've done over thousands of hours of television, so I think that's good. But I've had 4 people I had one recently tell me that I was just not his style, and thanks but no thanks. Okay, I don't take offense to that. I'm not going to change. Like I said, I'm 51 years old. I'm not going to change anytime soon. I'm not going to. So I don't change my hosting. I bring me and versions of me just to everything that I do. I don't worry about it.
No, I commend that. The only thing I'll say is you're very, very conscious not to curse. You can kiss my grits. That's
kiss
the only.
My grits. Kiss my grits, cheese and crackers. God bless America. I do my best. I had to come up with those because I have a mouth of a truck driver, folks. I really do in real life. I do. I cuss. So I try not to. So I come up with those, and the fans love it. The fans love that. They know when I come on. Oh, cheese and crackers. Kiss my grits. I mean, I just can't help it. So I try not to cut.
No, but even that, like that became part of your person. You know what I mean? It's not like you changed who you were. You were just like, okay, I know I shouldn't swear on camera, so let me just still do it, but just in a PC clean version type of way.
It's hard sometimes because as you know, when we do some of these shows that are opinion-based shows, we're really passionate. We get into it. And I know one of the things, especially with AfterBuzz, especially where we met, was they wanted to feel a friends talking. That was the whole thing. Your fans of a show and your friends having a discussion. Well, with my friends, I say certain words. They come out. And so I had to learn, well, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want explicit ratings on certain things. So when I first did my radio show, and I was on the radio, the standards of practice, they're like, James, I'm like, oh, I know. And I'm gonna out somebody right now. The only person who has gotten me in trouble when I was on the radio was Mark J. Freeman. He knows this. He said 3 or 4 cuss words during my show, and they had to leave it out. I got in trouble. And we had to joke about that later. We had a good joke about that. I got in trouble for that. But Mark J. Freeman was the only person who got me in trouble on the radio. He was cussing.
Amazing. Well, we're sort of running out of time, so I want to use this time to, what's your message for, like, what can we do to really enact change? Like, what's the best way? And obviously, like, I think listening and learning is a huge component of it, but I also don't think it's enough at this point in time. Like, action needs to happen. So, what do you, from your perspective?
I invite everyone. That's all races, all ages. But right now, I'm specifically saying white folks, because right now, like you said at the beginning of the show, it's your turn at this point. We're fighting and I'm trying to give you ideas, but literally now it's your turn to actually affect change in the world. So I invite white folks to shut up and listen to your Black counterparts and people of color counterparts. Try to listen without judgment. I know it's hard. Try this without judgment and really, truly listen. If you need help how to learn how to listen, I'm a life coach. Come to me and I'll teach you how to listen for a fee. And start putting into practice in your everyday life. I invite you in your everyday life, how you walk through life. Try to create those habits of taking bias out and prejudice out of your brains. And treating people of color and Black folks differently. Not always coming to quick conclusions of, well, it has to. Don't see 10 sides to the story. Try to see the Black side of the story. Just try to see it. Even if you don't understand it, just try. Like I said, form habits. Start to see it. Also, find your niche. You need some help. Talk to one of your Black friends. Talk to one of your Black families. Some of us have Black family members who are white. Talk to them. Ask them, what can they do? Usually they'll tell you what you can do, and then try to do it. And I'm also employing everyone, every white person, every Black person too, vote. This is my crusade, not just only for president, but local level. We have to start from where your neighborhood is. I have affected change on my block from going to town hall meetings and seeing what they're trying to implement in your own neighborhoods that are not good. So you really have to I'm sorry, folks, you have to take that time, Read those measures on the ballot. Read those laws on the ballot. Who are you voting in for district attorney? Who are you voting in for council person, mayor, vice mayor, sheriffs, and also lieutenant governor, governor. But look at those laws. Look at those measures. You're like, well, measure A, I don't know what that means. Read it. Because when something gets passed, you're like, I don't know how that happened. I can't park on my own street anymore. Well, you didn't pay attention. They're giving you everything. They're giving you all the information. They're giving it to you. And there's some rhetoric and stuff out there that is out there against Black folks. It's all out there, and it's right there for you. So I invite white folks to read everything, and please vote with your hearts and with some brains, and really stand with your Black brothers and sisters. This is an American problem. This is an American problem. It's happening to Black folks, but it's an American problem. And I just wrote a song yesterday called "My Problem Is Your Problem." It'll be out soon. It's my first protest song. You know how I can't help creating. But that's basically what it is. Is that this is our problem. And I think once white folks get on board with that, then true change will begin to happen.
I'll leave it at that. Final thing, plug everything that.
Well, sit back, Phil. I'll be here for another 10 minutes. So I'll just first say, where you can find me is that we're all James Lott Jr.'s are sold at James Lott Jr. and all social media platforms, including TikTok. And I want to tell somebody on TikTok.
Is it bad that I feel uncomfortable when you say that?
I sold. I know, really, I sold. I know. I'm taking it back for this. James Lott Jr. on TikTok, because I have a series called A Lot of Spoken Word. I do spoken word pieces for under a minute. And some people got mad at me recently because my spoken word pieces got a little more racial. So you know what James Lott Jr. is going to do? I'm going to continue doing those. So follow me there. Show me some love. Give me some comments. Let's talk about it. All of my show, I have like 7 podcasts. They're all out there. Just go to JLJ Media on YouTube. Go to JLJ Media on any platform, from Spotify to iHeartRadio to Google Play, everything. I have stuff from being left-handed, as Phil knows, to When Calls the Heart, to the soaps, all the Hallmark stuff. And I have a show called Extra Connections, which he's been on also. I have a lot of shows. I have something for everybody. And then, of course, my organizing show, the SOS Show with James Lott Jr. But I have shows for everyone to listen to and watch. Check those out. Subscribe and comment. I have music out. On every streaming service you can find music. My new album that's coming out is called Songs from My Dark Place. And actually, the songs are very dark, actually. I recorded them 2 years ago when I was coming out of my Bell's palsy and learning how to speak again. And they actually fit what's going on today. How interesting is that? The themes are very much like today. And that now will be coming out. And I have books. I have 20 books. And my latest book that just came out is How I Became Entrepreneur with my buddy Cesar Espino. We have a book series coming out. This first book is How We Became Entrepreneurs. Our next book coming out is How We Started Out as Entrepreneurs. And we both tell you plainly, in plain language, how we did it and how we are doing it. And that's all my books are on Amazon. They're all on Amazon or James Lott Jr. You can go ahead and follow those. I think that's everything I can think of right now. That's everything.
That was only 30 things. I think you have 100.
I'm creative, folks. I love it. I'm creative.
Well, I truly appreciate you, and I appreciate your compassion, and I appreciate you continuing your efforts in this cause, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for always being a mentor.
Bill, you are affecting change in the world. So by doing this and talking to your friends who are Black, you are affecting positive change in the world. So you are doing what more white folks need to do. And I know it's coming from your heart. I know it's coming from your gut. I know it's coming from your mind. And that's the 3 places you should always listen to. So I appreciate, I love you and I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Take care.